Welcome in to the PFF NFL betting show. Mason Cameron joining you guys remotely today. Over in studio, we have Ben Linsey as usual. And of course, joining us remotely also, Judah Fortgang. Boys, it's the last week of the regular season. How we feeling? There's some good games. There's some games of consequence. And then there's some games of not so much consequence that we still have still waiting on some lines for. But we're gonna get in on the action. We've got a lot to talk about today. Ben, how are you feeling? Are you excited for the end of this regular season? We're almost to the playoffs, man.
I'm feeling good. I am excited. All this uncertainty about who's playing. I feel like that opens up some opportunities once we finally get some player prop lines released. It's a little bit later in the schedule than usual this week, but I'm looking forward to putting together some SGPs and some player prop bets this weekend.
Some good money making opportunities because some guys that Ben, you're the sicko who takes the third string receiver ladders and makes them into gold. So we're gonna get some good opportunities here in Judah. No, I know you're the island game king. There was no Thursday game, obviously, here. But how are you feeling about this slate? We got some good ones coming up here. We got some on Saturday. We got a good one late on Sunday. What are you thinking about this week?
Yeah, I mean, tough to not have a Thursday night game. Though Ole Miss Georgia was a thriller for those college fans. Yeah, I mean, you kind of framed it perfectly. We're almost sandwiched. You got two island games to start Saturday, a big one Sunday night, and the rest is kind of a mumble jumble in between. So yeah, as Ben said, looking forward to kind of seeing how seeding shakes out. I do think this is going to be an awesome playoffs with kind of a wide open league, basically. I think we all thought the Rams were a tier above the rest. It goes to show how fragile that is, losing to the Falcons, and they're also going to be playing from behind, not having home field. So it'll be fascinating to see how everything shakes out. And in the transition period, I love regular season football for what it is. I love the red zone, kind of like week to week, grinding out third receiver player props or whatever for teams that are eliminated. But there's also a time and place to watch some great football in the playoffs, and I'm excited for that too.
A lot of good opportunity. There's going to be some good games on the slate. We're going to have a lot figured out this week. And of course, if you guys want in on the action and you want to know all the data and have it all right at your fingertips, make sure you go get PFF Plus. It's on sale right now with code HOLIDAY30 for 30% off. That gets you access to the player prop tool. That gets you access to the mock draft simulator and all the data trusted by all 32 NFL teams. And boy, since we don't have a Thursday game to break down, we can just jump straight into it with our game market bets of the week. And make sure if you guys want to get in on that as well, use promo code PFF at DraftKings to get in on the action. Judah, we're going to jump right to you, my man. Give us your game line of the week and what you're thinking, what you're targeting here.
Yeah, it's going to be Chicago -3 against the Lions. I mean, this is a Lions team on both sides of the ball that has kind of not been the same. The run game for the Lions, basically outside of the Jameer Gibbs explosion game against the Giants, has been kind of completely unable to get any. I think there's kind of a lot of prior baked in. And where I think, honestly, most of this kind of lies is the injury report. The Lions, entire team, is listed on the injury report. I don't think they'll be with Penei Sewell. He missed both the Wednesday and Thursday practices with an ankle. Alex Anzalone's dealing with a concussion. Taylor Decker's been hurt. Thomas Harper's dealing with a concussion. I don't know if Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to give it a go with the team that has kind of very obviously nothing to play for here. And you look at the Chicago team. I mean, this was certainly Caleb Williams' I think best performance on Sunday night, and an offense that is now kind of not even one-dimensional, just in their ability to run the ball, but has been layering on a bunch of the passing game as well. It's a Lions defense which plays a ton of man coverage. They don't really have the personnel right now to defend, especially with Luther Burden seemingly healthy. Roma Dunze has been their biggest kind of contributor against man, but it does not appear as though he will go for another week. And I think this is just a spot for the Bears to be able to move the ball, passing, running against a Lions team that is still pretty overrated and dealing with a ton of injuries.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw this Lions team this past week and just down the stretch here, they really haven't been that same unit that we saw early in the year, which had a dominant run game. And this is something that we've talked about a little bit too throughout the season, is that when this team cannot run the ball effectively, they really just fall flat offensively. And, granted, one of the things that is their drawback is that they are a little bit sensitive to pressure in the passing game. Jared Goff tends to struggle a little bit when you get in his face. The Bears haven't been the most effective pass rushing team in the league, but, Austin Booker, those guys, they're starting to get going a little bit. We see them flash at times. That could be an issue for them. And I do like the comment you made, with Romo Dunze not being out there, but we have seen this Bears offense be extremely productive even without him out there. And so, that's going to be something that's worth watching. This Bears team is for real, and they're going to be great to watch come the playoffs. Ben, do you see anything else in that matchup?
No, not really. I think my biggest concern with the Bears side is just the defense. Like, I don't know how much challenge this Bears defense is going to pose to the Lions offense. Even though the Lions offense has struggled, they have been able to run the ball. Really, the Niners haven't been able to run the ball super effectively all year, and Christian McCaffrey, without George Kittle, had a big day on the ground last week. Talked about the pressure, right? Like, in the matchup like we saw last week with the Vikings defense against the Lions, like, that's where I'm a little bit more concerned with Goff. Like, I don't know if the Bears are going to be able to impact him the same way. This is the Lions offense that we saw drop, 52 against the Bears the first time they played. So I think my favorite way to play this game is probably the over at 50.5, because I do think we can get scoring on both sides. Don't really have a super strong read on the spread here.
Yeah, and I do like your call out for the game total here, because when we get it underneath like a key number at 51, there is some value there to go over that mark at the 50.5. And you did hit the nail on the head. They were both extremely effective in their first matchup. And when they are hitting, like both of these offenses can go, we saw, the Bears go toe to toe with the 49ers and really go shot for shot. And at times, that's where the Lions have been too. But I do like still the value, like you said, Judah, with the 3. Getting it at a flat 3, I think that is still a good opportunity there. You do get a little bit of push value there, but obviously we want to win, and I think that they're definitely capable of taking this game, by more than the 3 mark, especially given all the injuries that we've seen. This Lions defense is just riddled with injuries, and, one of those comments, or one of the things that we talk about a lot, is actually, Judah, well, we're going back to it, perfect coverage grade, man, or perfect coverage rate. And this Bears defense, they've been a little bit better. They're getting healthier. We see them flash at times, and it's just going to be something worth watching down the stretch, particularly when we get into the playoffs, where you're going to have a lot of really effective passing games, and they're going to have to go up against some high-tier offensive firepower in the playoffs. So this is going to be an opportunity for them to really get right and figure it out. So, Ben, while we're over here, let's jump over to you. What is your game market bet of the week? What are you targeting? What are you seeing in this one?
Yeah, looking at the Saturday opener, the Panthers-Bucks game, under 43.5. This was a little bit higher. It was at 44.5, and the over has actually gotten around 70% of the bets, and this has moved the other way. Kind of indicates that there's sharp money on the under, and it makes sense when you're looking at this game. The Panthers just haven't been very explosive at all, especially over the back half of the year, and it's kind of contrast to what we saw from Bryce Young in his passing offense last season, when we're like, maybe they turned a corner, Bryce Young's looked better, and they're tied for last since week 11. So that's since Bryce Young's big game against the Falcons, where he threw for 400-plus yards. Since that point, they only have 12 games of 20-plus yards. That's tied for last in the NFL. And Bryce Young has been conservative, right? A lot of underneath passes. This offense in general has been conservative. They've been super run heavy. They don't really want to put the ball in Bryce Young's hands. He only has a 6.3 yard average depth of target over that stretch, which is third lowest in the NFL. Compared to last year, that same week 11 to week 17 stretch, he had a 10.1 yard average depth of target, which was top 5 in the NFL. So they're not pushing the ball downfield. And we've talked about the Tampa Bay offense on the other side and their struggles since week 7, which that was that Lions game that you can kind of look at as a turning point for the Bucs offense this season. Baker Mayfield's been the least accurate quarterback in the NFL based off of our ball charting, where we're looking at where the ball is placed relative to the route, all this stuff. So not just completion percentage or adjusted completion percentage, but accuracy rate. He's last in the NFL. That's been a major issue for this Bucs offense, which has really struggled over the back half of the year. And then you combine that with the fact that both of these teams kind of play slow and methodical. I like to look, when I'm looking at totals, at just average play clock remaining at the snap. And if you take out 2-minute, 4-minute garbage time, you kind of look at neutral situations. Carolina has the 7th lowest amount of play clock remaining at the snap. Tampa Bay has the 2nd lowest. So these are both teams that kind of like to go slow when you're looking at pace, which also plays to the under. So I think in a game with a lot at stake, a divisional game, I like this to go under the 43.5.
Yeah, this was one that I wrote about early in the week with some lines to watch as we get into this final week of the season. And I was actually leaning, towards that Panthers +3 just because I really haven't seen anything from this Buccaneers offense that has impressed me down the stretch. And, you hit the nail on the head when you said Baker Mayfield and his accuracy has been a struggle. And it's actually not just ball placement, but putting the ball in danger. And that we've seen that a lot. I mean, this past week he had 3 turnover-worthy plays against Miami, and that's really what, broke the back for them. And, the last time we saw this team match up, Carolina forced that interception right at the end to end the game, essentially. And, the last time around, I was definitely on the over, thinking that, hey, both of these defensives have really struggled, and this could be an opportunity. Ben, this was one that we talked about because I know that you were sort of on that Bryce Young over at, I think it was just around 200 passing yards. It was not even a big number, and he still really didn't hit that mark because of how slow and methodical they really like to move the ball. And I mean, it's something that we're going to see in this game, where I really like your read on the under here. I also like that Panthers at +3 because another tidbit for this one is that since week 11, I believe, the Panthers defense, over 19% of their drives faced end in a turnover. That's the highest rate in the NFL down the stretch here. So I think that that's going to be a real big key to this one. You're going to get a slow game. You're going to get a methodical game. And really, it could come down. I mean, it's corny to say, but it can really come down to the turnover battle and who wins in that regard, who takes care of the ball better to see who wins this game. And, a lot on the line for this one. Judah, do you see anything in this matchup that we're missing?
No, I don't. I think that's kind of a good read. My kind of pushback would be if Carolina kind of comes out a lot more aggressive given the matchup and jumps out to a lead. I think it forces Tampa Bay to be aggressive. And kind of to your point, I think the turnovers are probably somewhat fluky and I don't think are necessarily sustainable and are probably making the Panthers defense look a lot better than it actually is. And this is still a unit that's kind of struggled all year. And if you don't have the turnovers to mask the kind of down efficiency, then the defense looks a lot worse. But I think I agree with Ben's general point here, especially that Baker Mayfield has just not been the same quarterback since week 7. Getting Tristan Wirfs back is going to help, but I don't think it's going to help him throw the ball more accurately, and that's kind of been the main problem for the Bucs so far.
Yeah, the coming out more aggressive, that's what I played the last time these teams played, right? And it just didn't happen. So maybe that's me playing scared and not wanting to do it again. But it's just, I don't know how much faith I have in this Panthers offense. We've seen it once, and exactly once this year in that Falcons game. And that's the only time we've seen it.
Yeah, no, and I do want to make a note on the sort of the fluky turnover thing, and I do agree is that in a large degree of the sample, when we talk about turnovers, a lot of them do get sort of fluky. I think that that's sort of where the big turnover-worthy play rate for Baker Mayfield comes into play, is that it is more than just tip balls and things like that. He's putting the ball in danger. So now when they did play that last game, that final interception that did end it wasn't a turnover-worthy play. That was just a miscommunication. He thought he was going to get an out cut there. I think it was Mike Evans he was throwing to. He thought he was going to get an out cut. It wasn't, and they jumped all over it. And then on the other side of that, one of the things that I've really been impressed about is, Mike Jackson in that secondary, and this Panthers tandem of corners with J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson, they lead the NFL in interceptions by a cornerback duo. I do believe they have 9, and it's some of the stuff that we just see from them is super impressive. I wasn't really expecting some of that from guys like Mike Jackson. There was one last week. I don't remember if it ended up coming down with it, but he had one where it was a near toe tap in the end zone, just reaching for it out of the back of the end zone. So it's those sort of impressive plays where I'm like combining the factor of, they've been effective in that regard. Now, I definitely get what you're saying, Judah, because they really haven't been an overall effective defense otherwise. But it is been something where they do try to press the issue. They do try to take account of that and really, take the ball away at a high degree. You can tell that it is sort of a mindset for them to take the ball away. That is our ball, and they've achieved that pretty well. So it is something that's worth watching for, and I think it could play a factor in this one. And I do have a little bit of a SGP lean on this one that we'll get into here a little bit later. Tease there. But yeah, so it's going to be a good matchup. One of the very few consequential matchups of the slate here for sure. And we'll actually jump over to my game line of the week here. And it's another one of the very few consequential games on the slate. And I'm taking the team total for Seattle at over 24.5 points. And, overall, I liked the game total at 47.5. It's actually come down quite a bit from the 49.5 where it opened. And I like it given some of the offensive firepower that we see from both of these teams. But I more like the Seattle total given this San Francisco defense has really struggled. And I do have some, concerns about what we might be able to get on San Francisco's offensive side of the ball, which is why I sort of leaned away from the overall game total here. We look at George Kittle, limited participant all week in practice. He missed last week, as we all remember. And, even though he was a limited participant all week, Kyle Shanahan didn't exactly give a glowing report on if he was going to be playing. They said, hey, short week, not much work at practice, very limited in, what they've done this week on a short week. So that's going to be a bit of a concern. And then the other really big one, Trent Williams, DNP all week with that hamstring injury. So that's going to be a really big one to watch for. That could really turn the tide, particularly against the Seattle defense that can pressure the passer very well. So that's some concerns. And Christian McCaffrey, he was banged up a little bit during the week, DNP to start the week. He ended up being a full participant at the end of the week. So, he's looking like he's going to be good to go. But I have a little bit of concern about what we might see from San Francisco. So I'm going to lean more towards what we've seen from Seattle, which is, very potent offense down the stretch, fourth in yards per play. They're tied for the most scoring drives in the NFL this season, and their median team total this year, 28.5 points. They've only scored under 24 points twice since the start of November. So that's 9 games that they've gone, or 7 games, 7 of the 9 games they've gone over this mark. And I'm right in on it. They get Rashid Shaheed back, it's looking like. And, the last time they played this team, I think it was a little bit fluky. That was that week 1 game. They scored just 13 points. That was their lowest total of the year. And San Francisco, if we think back to week 1, San Francisco had Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and since losing both, they're 28th in touchdown drive percentage allowed. And when you give that opportunity to a team like Seattle that can push the ball down the field at a very explosive rate, this is a matchup that Sam Darnold can really exploit. If we go to some of the key insights for this game, Ben, you talk about some of the key insights. This is something that you helped pioneer here. This is a game where Sam Darnold can really excel. He's top 5 in passing grade from a clean pocket. Something we've talked about all season long is San Francisco cannot pressure the passer. They're 30th in pressure rate. And then if we talk about that explosive play ability, Sam Darnold, 3rd in completions of 20 yards or more. San Francisco, 26th in deep completions allowed. That's going to be an opportunity where I really think you can see JSN explode for a big day. against a defense that has really struggled, and 24.5 points. I mean, you'd want this total to be sort of pushed by them needing to throw the ball, of course, because this is a Seattle team that runs the ball a lot. This is something we've talked about a lot this season. They're one of the highest rushing rates in the NFL. We've seen some explosives out of that have actually been very effective for them in offense. But what I think we can see here is that they are going to be pushed a little bit to throw the ball. This isn't going to be a game where they can rest on their laurels and just run the ball and go home with a win. They're going to need to throw a little bit. They're going to need to push the issue. And even still, against defenses like this, they have beaten teams like that 26-0, 26-3. Like, this is a game where they can figure it out regardless of what they're seeing on the other side. And I have a lot of confidence in them. Ben, are you seeing anything in this one that I might have missed?
No, I mean, I'm all on board with attacking this 49ers defense, especially the combination when you get these teams where the defense has struggled like the Niners has, and you also have an offense that can still score and kind of force the other team to keep scoring. It's a good combination to get up points for an opposing offense here like Seattle, who you mentioned. Sam Darnold's been great from a clean pocket. San Francisco's dead last in pressure rate since week 10. Like, this is a defense that has gotten picked apart. The Niners offense part of this, if we just kind of look at the other side, they've been awesome the last 6 weeks or so since Brock Purdy came back. I am like a little curious how they look in this game, just because like the defenses they've played since Brock Purdy has come back are not good at all. Right? They played Arizona, Chicago, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Carolina. Like, probably the best defense they played over that stretch was Cleveland, and they had 250 yards of offense. Didn't really need to do anything to win that game. All right, so this is a legitimate test for them against a very good Seahawks defense. One that we've seen give up some production to good offenses, like a couple weeks ago against the Rams. But I'm interested to kind of see how explosive San Francisco can be in this spot.
You bring up a good point. Is I do wish that the injuries weren't at all a concern for San Francisco, so we could see this offense come out in full firepower and really get a read on them against a great defense right before the playoffs. Because this game is for the first overall seed. Like, this is going to mean a lot towards what we see out of these teams down in the playoffs when it does come to much more effective defensive football and really some games that are going to be very, very tight. Judah, do you see anything in this matchup that I might have missed?
No, I think it's kind of what you guys discussed. Definitely want to be attacking the San Francisco defense. The part that concerns me with Darnold is, like, he has not been the same quarterback at all, kind of since the 4 interception game against the Rams. Even if you look at his kind of play over the middle of the field, he had some unsustainable success in tight windows, and has been throwing to those far less often and with far less success. So there's just kind of some kind of built into the price here. I think some less reliable data that I'm all in favor of the San Francisco side. And then, if you do get the San Francisco offense firing on all cylinders, Darnold in a negative game state, which he has not seen many of, is not the Darnold I'm particularly interested in. But with all that said, given everything we know about Sam Darnold, he's like especially sensitive to kind of the matchup. And San Francisco defense right now is atrocious. To both of your guys' point. And then, we don't know if we're going to get Kittle or Trent Williams. Those are like 2 massive injuries for the Niners. They have shown a remarkable resilience to kind of score no matter what. And this offense is certainly, if those 2 guys are both in, it might be the best in the NFL currently with the way they're playing. So it'll be a fascinating game to watch, but I don't have the same kind of strong takes because I see a lot of kind of counter arguments to Darnold and the Seahawks offense.
Definitely. Okay. And I know that you have a prop read on that one, which we'll jump into in just a minute. But of course, everybody, make sure you're getting PFF Plus and you're checking out our new player prop tool.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
And of course, make sure you guys go get PFF Plus to get access to the player prop tool. 30% off right now with code HOLIDAY30. Like I said, that gets you access to the player prop tool itself. It gets you access to the mock draft simulator and all of the data trusted by all 32 NFL teams. You're going to get all the grades for this final week of the season. And of course, all the grades come playoffs. So you're ready to go. Again, that's code HOLIDAY30 for 30% off. Judah, we're going to stick with you. We were just talking about Seattle, San Francisco, and you have a player prop read for this one. Tell us what you're targeting.
Yeah, Brock Purdy over 15.5 rush yards. It's kind of a combination of two angles. The first of which is that as Purdy's gotten healthier, and remember, he was dealing with a lot of kind of injuries earlier in the season, his scramble rate has increased from kind of the 10 to 15% range. The last 3-4 weeks is closer to 25%. And he's running far more frequently. And you also kind of get the Seattle as a team that creates a lot of disruption, where quarterbacks are more likely to scramble. They've faced a ton of just completely immobile quarterbacks in recent weeks, whether it's Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. But if you look, they've also given up kind of the best rushing games to guys like Cam Ward, Jacoby Brissett. Bryce Young, not his best, but had nine rushes for 27 yards last week. It's a team that's very vulnerable to the quarterback run. So you kind of add both those angles up, which is a Purdy who, now finally healthy, is running like he was towards the end of last season, and the Seattle defense that's pretty vulnerable to quarterbacks running. And I think this is a pretty nice bet here.
Yeah, he's hit that mark in 3 of his last 5 or 6 games. I know he had 48 a few weeks ago. I know he hit that last week against Chicago. It has been something that he's been able to accomplish. And like you said, he's looked a lot more mobile. He's looked a lot more, resilient in the pocket to move and, wants to get going. You can tell that foot's not really troubling him anymore. It might have when he was first coming back a little bit. You could tell he was a little bit ginger on it, but now he looks a lot better in that regard. Ben, is there anything else you're seeing maybe in that regard or with this matchup, or are there any other props that you're sort of interested in targeting for that game?
Yeah, my SGP is from that game, so we could jump that way. But as far as Purdy rushing, I think it makes sense. All right, he's a mobile quarterback against a defense that is able to generate pressure, really good in coverage against wide receivers, like less open guys in general. So I think that angle makes sense.
And let's jump into it, Ben. Go ahead. Give us the moneymaker right now. What are you targeting for that with your SGP?
Well, the options are pretty limited because we're sitting here on Friday and there's 3 games with props out. So I'm sticking with this San Francisco-Seattle game, and I'm kind of going just 2 legs, all receiving yard props, 1 on each team. Rashid Shaheed, 80-plus receiving yards. CMC, 70-plus receiving yards. That is 44-1. And the Shaheed part of this, his usage has kind of been interesting. since getting to Seattle. Like when they made that trade, everyone was like, "Oh, this is an offense that has been so great throwing downfield," and Shaheed's one of the best deep threats in the league and has been for the past couple of years. So there's a natural fit there. We haven't really seen that at all. But what we did see was weeks 14 and 15. He started to get used more in those games against Atlanta and Indianapolis. We saw him go over 60-plus yards, starting to become more involved as a pass catcher in the offense. And then week 16 against the Rams had two big plays. He had the punt return touchdown and the long run, but not used it all in the passing game. And then last week is the concussion. He's clear concussion protocol. It looks like he's going to play. I think this is a good time when his lines are really low against the defense that we talked about in San Francisco that has struggled to bet on that explosive coming. If you look just since week 10, the 49ers have allowed the third most deep completions in the NFL. Talked about the pressure rate. Like Darnold's probably going to have some time back there. They are going to be down Charles Cross, it looks like, which doesn't help at left tackle. But I think they'll have some time to take those shots. And this is when I want to bet on Shaheed, when the lines are low against a bad defense, because he hasn't produced the last couple weeks. And then on the McCaffrey side, I like McCaffrey receiving overs. I've kind of been on Seattle funneling targets. There we go, to running backs and tight ends the last couple of weeks. And McCaffrey's the best receiving back in the league. He had 9 catches for 73 yards in week 1 against Seattle. So I think this is a spot where Pearsall's banged up, Kittle's banged up. Seattle, very good against wide receivers, doesn't give up a ton of production. Massive Puka Nacua game, notwithstanding. So I think McCaffrey can be involved here, especially if Seattle's being explosive and putting up points via Rashid Shaheed explosives.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a, condition for a pretty high-scoring performance for both of them, like we've talked about previously. And I think that those guys are definitely an opportunity cost there. Judah, do you see anything with those two lines? Are you in on that? Are you tailing? Ben, I think that, what was that one? Was it 44-1? Is that what we got with that one?
44-1, yeah.
Yeah. No, I like both those places also. Why not together?
Yeah, let's do it. We're riding with it. And, Ben, let's just stick with you right here. You've got a player prop read for a game that's a little less consequential, but still has some opportunity and still is going to have some guys that are trying to make themselves some money with some contract incentives. Tell us which way you're leaning with your player prop pick for the week.
Yeah, if you're on gambling social media at all, you've probably seen the contract incentive list for Week 18, and I am fading that pretty hard this week. And I want to probably wait. So my prop bet is Tony Pollard. One number got thrown out, 71.5 yesterday. It's down to 67.5, kind of across the board. So under 67.5, minus 114. I'm going to wait to bet this until right before the game Sunday in the hopes that it gets bet up, as people want to bet on Tony Pollard getting 66 yards for $250,000. But the matchup here, this is a spot. I know the Titans' run game has been good the last couple weeks. Tony Pollard's had some big performances the last couple weeks. But this is a spot where Tennessee is almost 2 touchdown underdogs. Jacksonville still playing for the division. And the Jaguars have allowed the fewest rushing yards in the NFL to opposing running backs this year. So it's a game where the game state's probably not in Tony Pollard's favor. It's a very difficult matchup just looking at how this defense has defended the run this season in terms of allowing rushing yards. And you're probably going to get inflated lines because people want to bet the contract incentive part of this. So this is a spot where I will happily be taking the under, currently 67.5. Going to wait it out and hopefully get that to cross 70 again.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the player prop tool, we have a pretty strong cover probability here and a huge edge up above 20% for what you could get on the under on that, which the projection that our model is putting out there is about 52.5 yards on that one. And I think that it does play into what you're saying. This defense is for real, and they are limiting running backs on the ground. And a lot of it has been, especially in recent weeks, is that these game states don't go in other running backs' favors. Like you said, this Jags offense is for real. They're clicking on all cylinders right now. And Tony Pollard, while he has had a productive, last month or so, we have also seen a number of games where this offense just doesn't have the capability of sticking in games to be able to get him the ball with any real frequency. Judah, do you see anything else in that matchup there? I mean, it's Jacksonville, Tennessee, so not a ton of consequence in that game. But is there anything that you're seeing in that one?
No, I think Ben's right. This is like an interesting spot where this game would have the same consequence in week 15 as opposed to week 17, right? Like nothing's changed in that front, and we wouldn't be talking the same way. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like, sure, I think the contract incentive might come into play if it's like the fourth quarter and Tony Pollard is sitting on 63 rush yards and they get the ball back already in a game that is, three scores out. Sure, they might give him some extra carries. But I don't think that kind of as most of this plays out. To Ben's point, this is like I don't think the Titans are going to fully go out of their way to feed Tony Pollard carries, and I think this price is probably going to be bet up on that assumption.
Yeah, and Ben, as you did mention, is that this Jags team is still fighting to hold off the Texans, so they do need to put their best foot forward. It's not going to be a game where they're really resting on their laurels and sitting a bunch of guys and trying to stay healthy. They do need to win this game, and now maybe down the stretch they decide, hey, this game's well in hand, and we'll pull some of our guys. But I do, just like you did say, Judah, I just don't see it being an opportunity where the Titans really are in a game state that is conducive to that. If they are, a handful of yards away, they might think about, getting him that incentive. But that is sort of a big if here where it could get out of hand quite a bit. So I'm definitely going to be riding on that one with you there, Ben. For my own player prop pick of the week, I'm going to another game of consequence here, and we're going to Pittsburgh. We're taking MVS to go over 2.5 receptions. This one's at plus 112 the last time that I checked. Without DK Metcalf in week 17, Rodgers really leaned on MVS. We saw him run here, tied for the most routes run. He had 8 targets, which led the team. Now, he only had 3 receptions for 21 yards, but that was against Cleveland, one of the best coverage defenses in the NFL, something that we've talked about quite a bit. But this is a far more favorable matchup versus Baltimore's coverage unit, who's allowed the third most receptions to receivers in wide alignments this season, and that's where MVS really does most of his work. They're one of 8 teams to allow more than 150 open targets to wide receivers. So when we chart these guys, we don't just chart, hey, what was the result of the play? We actually chart if guys were open, if they were able to create separation and really find space within zones. And that's something I think we're going to be able to see against this Ravens defense, who we've talked about quite a bit this season as a man coverage heavy defense. But over the last month or so, they've really kind of flipped the switch. They went from 30th in zone coverage rate in weeks 1 through 14 to now 11th in zone coverage rate since week 15. They've really transitioned to far more cover 3 looks. And over the last 3 seasons, MBS, a 142.6 passer rating when targeted versus cover 3, 85% completion percentage on throws charted as accurate or catchable inaccurate. So as Ben sort of mentioned earlier, we talk about the ball placement, and we have guys that actually track ball placement and give it a grading on, is it accurate? Is it leading him into open area? Or is it maybe just a little bit off kilter, but still a catchable ball? On those balls, 85% completion percentage. He is actually pulling in quite a few of those over the last 3 seasons. And if we actually look, we chart separation rate for all receivers. And I was actually shocked when I went to go look at this. MVS has been absolutely excellent as a separator. 68% separation percentage. That's the third highest in the NFL this season. He has been fantastic. So they haven't really utilized him well. They didn't really utilize him a ton in San Francisco. Didn't really utilize him a ton so far in Pittsburgh. But this is a guy who is still playing at a solid level. And with that chemistry with Rodgers, he's going to get targets. Now, it's just really going to come down to completing those targets. We didn't see that so much last week. He still hit over at 3. But I think that this is a much better opportunity against this Baltimore secondary that we've watched really struggle quite a bit this season. This isn't, it sounds corny. It's something that we hear all the time, which this isn't your dad's Ravens defense. This isn't your big brother's Ravens defense. I mean, it's corny, but it is true. This is not the strength of this team this time around. And really, it's been a struggle for them to keep up with other teams because of it. And, I mean, we all watched the Steelers this past week. They were sort of floundering without DK Metcalf. I think there is still going to be an opportunity for them to throw the ball in what should be a pretty hard hitting game. I think we're going to be able to see him go over that 2.5 line. Ben, is there anything that you're seeing in this one?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think Judah's going to talk about it here in a second, but I think there is a path to Pittsburgh having a lot of passing production. And we saw that when they played a couple weeks ago. Because this is a Ravens defense that defends the run well, and it's a Ravens secondary that has given up a lot of big plays, particularly over the back half of the year. All those deep numbers I was talking about with the Niners, in respect to Rashid Shaheed, the Ravens have been up there in terms of deep attempts, deep targets, deep receiving yards allowed this year. We saw it a couple weeks ago when they played New England. Drake May had a big game attacking downfield. That's not really what the Steelers do. I think with MVS specifically, I would rather target yards than over 2.5 receptions. Just because, yes, he had 8 targets last week. That went terribly. that did not go well. I think they hopefully they decide that their best path forward is not force-feeding targets to MVS, and also Calvin Austin potentially coming back this week, which I have some interest in playing Calvin Austin, particularly if his lines come in super low. Right now, Pat Freiermuth has the highest receiving yardage line on the Steelers with MVS coming in a little behind. So, I think there's going to be opportunities to hit on some explosives with the Steelers offense in this matchup. I would just prefer doing that instead of going 3+ catches for MVS.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you do make a good point where, as a guy over the course of his career, MVS has definitely been sort of a further down the field A-dot guy as more of a target monster. It's definitely come more into the connection of where I feel like one of the things that we're going to see from Rodgers is he likes to lean on his guys that he's comfortable with. And I think if there is a situation where we're seeing this game really come down to it and he needs something, I think that we could see more targets. But you are right. The 8 targets did not go terribly well when you get 3 for 21 last week. So this is going to be an interesting situation. And Judah, before we jump into your same game parlay, we're gonna tease it here for a second because I know you have some skin on this one with your SGP. We are going to talk about the game plans. Our game plan of the week is always driven by Western and Southern. It's presented by Western and Southern, and it's a game plan for your financial future. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With a life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today, knowing tomorrow is covered. And whether you're just starting out or building your dynasty or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. Judah, you have a read here. Tell us the same game parlay you're targeting for this Ravens-Steelers pivotal Week 18 matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Ben kind of said it to a T, which is this is a Ravens run defense that's been probably the best in the NFL, if not the best, and top 3, top 5, whatever you want to call it, over the second half of the season, and a defense that has not allowed a below average yards per attempt game to any quarterback, not the Cleveland Browns or JJ McCarthy this season. And to everything Ben said, they're also forcing a lot of throws downfield with the highest, deep percentage, deep completions allowed, explosive play rate, all of those kind of stats that point to explosives. But kind of the play attempts, 280 yards, Steelers money line, and kind of a very similar game plan to how they won a couple weeks ago, which is throwing the football consistently against a pretty bad Ravens secondary and a really good run defense. I would also say this is not exactly kind of a screaming top play in the sense of like we are working with very limited kind of props at the time of this recording. I think just kind of getting at the directional angle of the Steelers winning through the pass, I think is a little bit mispriced right now.
Yeah, definitely some opportunity there. This is going to be one of those games. It's the night game. It's going to be one that, more lines are definitely going to come out. So make sure you guys are following Ben and Judah on Twitter. Judah at throw the damn ball. Ben Linsey _ So make sure you guys are following both of those guys. They're giving out all the lines that you're going to need as they become more available. And of course, check out all of Judah's work over on PFF.com, where he gives some same game parlays every single week, some touchdown scores, and a lot of stuff that you guys need to be aware of. So make sure you guys go hit him up on there. And Ben, we already talked about your SGP for the week. And just to recap, you're going with Rashid Shaheed, 80 plus receiving yards. Christian McCaffrey, 70 plus receiving yards. That is 44-1. Judah is over on the Steelers passing game. Rodgers, 280 plus, 32 attempts. Pittsburgh money line. That one is 15-1. We're going to go over to mine here, which is a game we've already talked about today. But again, as Judah mentioned, not too many lines out at the moment. So we're working with what we have. But this is one that I think has a lot of potential. And we're going over back to Carolina, Tampa Bay. And I'm taking Carolina money line. Tommy Tremble, 5+ receptions and an anytime touchdown. And we're telling the story of Carolina finding some passing success versus a Tampa Bay secondary that's really given up significant production to tight ends. And the injury to Jatavion Sanders really leading a path to Tommy Tremble having a solid day. Now, 5 receptions and a touchdown is not a massive day by any means, but it is a spot where I think we can really get some value with Tommy Tremble here. Carolina, something that we talked about prior here is I think that I just not really been overly impressed by what I've seen from Tampa in their offensive production down the stretch. And really it comes down to they're in the bottom third of the league in yards per play and turnovers since the start of November. And we already mentioned the big turnover issue for Baker Mayfield. He has the second most turnover-worthy plays. He saw 3 this past week against Miami, and it was really a bunch of backbreakers. And of course, just to recap, Carolina since week 12 is first. Their defense is first in drives, ending in a turnover. Now, we did mention, obviously, there's some flukiness to turnovers. It's not something that definitely is, measurable all the time. But I think when you combine a defense that is opportunistic with a quarterback that has put the ball in danger, it is going to be a situation that could make a big difference in this game. I see it being a tighter game, but I do think that that is going to be the big deciding factor. But when we talk about Tampa versus tight ends, they've allowed a ton of receptions, a ton of production to tight ends over the last month. They've allowed the most receptions and the most touchdowns to the position since the start of December. Jatavion Sanders, he got placed on IR. We're going to see an uptick in Tommy Tremble's usage. And this is one of the spots where he's going to really come in handy is the red zone. Sanders actually led Carolina in red zone target percentage at over 24%. Bryce Young is 6th in red zone passing rate. When we look at the Tampa side of this, they're 31st in red zone touchdown percentage allowed. I think you're going to be able to see an opportunity where Tommy Tremble, a guy that's going to work more close to the line of scrimmage, he's going to be able to rack up a few targets. Now, the big hurdle here for this is actually Carolina's reluctance to really push the ball down the field. They haven't been that team that's really pushed the issue and made it a case to, take advantage of a Tampa Bay defense that really does struggle in the secondary. Now, last time we saw them play, the tight ends were really not a factor. I don't think that's going to be a case in this matchup. I think they're going to learn from what all the other offensives have done to attack Tampa and beat them down the stretch. Now, they won very tight game this last time. We saw a big game from Ted McMillan. I think that this is going to be an opportunity for some other guys to get involved, Tommy Tremble being one of them. So 5+ receptions, an anytime touchdown, and Carolina winning on the money line. Judah, I'm going to head over to you. Do you see any holes in my logic here? What are you thinking? Poke some holes in my logic here. Where are we going with this one?
No, I don't know if it's. I think kind of what everyone said is earlier. If you get a kind of low volume, slow pace game, like are we just going to see enough attempts for Tommy Tremble to like get enough receptions? But we're not attacking a median here, and I think kind of the surprising piece here is the lack of correlation implied by the Tommy Tremble touchdown and Carolina winning, especially in a low scoring game. That I think the logic is sound, and the bet I think is well priced for an SGP.
Yeah. Ben, are you seeing anything else in that one?
No, if you're telling the story of the Panthers winning through a high pass volume, like this makes some sense. Like I think my biggest concern would just be like Tommy Tremble's not the only tight end. Mitchell Evans is there too, and it's not like Tommy Tremble's kind of going to dominate the targets, but he could. Like yes, that's just kind of a situation where who knows what happens. Which in that case, like I don't even hate doing something like Panthers money line, Tremble maybe cut off 1 reception, 4 receptions, and then Mitchell Evans touchdown. Like it just kind of put both in there because I do think there's a situation where the touchdowns are kind of random. Like Trimble has 4 red zone targets this year. Mitchell Evans has 3. Mitchell Evans has more receiving touchdowns in the red zone than Trimble. Like if you're trying to boost the odds, like if you do Panthers money line, Trimble 5+, Evans anytime touchdown, it's 100-1 instead of 50-1. So
Love it. Love it. Mix and match. We're gonna be building some winners here this week. And of course, boys, we still have a little bit of time left. We've gone through all of our picks for the week. Is there any other games that you guys are really excited to see shake out, or any other, matchups that you're hoping to see us get for the first round of the playoffs? Judah, are you seeing anything that you're really excited to see, or any, sort of angles that you're waiting to bet as the info comes out?
I mean, I guess like if we get some Tanner McGee props, I'll definitely want to bet that. It's a situation where like the team does want to win. All else being equal, even if they're not going to kind of play their full slate of starters. No, I mean, look, we've got a ton of 10-point spreads, 7.5-point spreads. There's not. It's a very strange week to bet. I think kind of honing in on the games we did makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely makes some sense. Ben, anything you are also super interested in seeing? Any games or any angles that you're looking to target as the lines become available?
I was also waiting on Tanner McKee primarily, so Judah beat me to it. Like that's probably the spot I'm most interested in right now. If you're looking at just some alts and some just bets in general on the Eagles offense, I think I'm kind of intrigued by Kansas City, Kansas City's offense, in the sense that Oladukin, I honestly don't know. I'm not sure what the pronunciation is there, but he hardly put up any yards last week against the Broncos, and as a result, his line is extremely low this week. And I think this is a case where first start against Denver is very different than a game here against a Raiders team that like should be trying to lose. Like the players on the field, we talked about this, aren't going to be trying to lose, but Max Crosby's not playing. Like Brock Bowers isn't playing. And this is a Chiefs offense that has struggled to run the ball. This is also a Raiders defense that has been better against the run than they have against the pass. So if you're getting a situation where his line's below 150, and you get potentially some of these receivers with really low lines, I think there is some potential here to build around that a little bit.
Love it. I like that idea because, they really didn't have a lot of passing production, and this was something, that Judah had mentioned as that target. Is there was some potential. They still have some weapons over there. They're going to want to play in this final game with Travis Kelce's potentially final career game send off, and they're not going to want to just mail that one in. But on the other side, this Raiders team has not really, from the front office perspective, they're playing for a higher pick. And if we see some of those Instagram clips of Max Crosby shooting threes, and he's feeling healthy, but not going to be playing this one, obviously. So it's going to be an interesting exercise in divisional matchup. That doesn't mean a lot for a ton of people, but Travis Kelce, and I think there is some potential there. So for sure,
I mean, it means a lot for Olajuwon, right? Who's trying to put on tape that he can play and get future jobs. So I think there is some potential there. There also is potential. This game is just extremely ugly, and they just alternate running the clock out and punting, and that's a chance too. But
yeah, definitely some opportunity there. It's gonna be an interesting week, boys. But that's it for us, and of course for everybody watching at home. Thank you guys for joining us all season long. We are going to be back for the playoffs. I can't wait to talk with these guys about everything that is going to happen in some games of consequence coming down the stretch here. And of course, if you guys want all the data right at your fingertips, make sure you download PFF Plus, or get a subscription to PFF Plus, 30% off right now with code HOLIDAY30. That gets you access to the PFF player prop tool, gets you access to the mock draft simulator, and of course, it gets you the data trusted by all 32 NFL teams. For Ben Linsey, for Judah Fortgang, for our producers, Tyler, Eli, Quinn, I'm Mason Cameron. We'll see you guys back here next week, same time, same place for the NFL Betting Show.